Minecraft was my first ever video game I tried. I started in 2013 at update 1.6.4 and goddamn, the game was fun. Looking back now, there wasn't too much to do in that version. Most overworld structures didn't provide anything but some underwhelming treasures, the nether was one stretched out biome, and killing the ender dragon was the furthest progression point. And yet, it was infinite fun. I'd sit in a forest, build tree houses, and experiment with writing the simplest mods at the time. However, repeating the same thing over and over again became boring, and eventually, instead of playing the same game all day, I started trying new ones and experiencing the so famous 2-week Minecraft phase, which most of the community should know by now. For those who don't, it's a phenomenon when there is low-key nothing to do inside the game for an experienced player, so the only times they log on are when enough changes are made for them to explore, usually 2 weeks per year. This 300 IQ tactic worked for me for quite some time, but in the past few years I noticed that I'm not really interested in any of the new updates, only returning if I see an interesting global mod release. And this led me to the main question of this video. If we look at the update history, we can outline multiple clear eras of Minecraft. First, the pre-release era. There was no clear progression and the updates focused on shaping the main game direction. We got world generation, the first lineup of friendly and hostile mobs, basic crafting, basic mining, and everything else needed to prove the concept. Then, the release era, which expanded and improved on existing concepts. We got the end dimension, enchanting, trading, more dungeons, more biomes, and of course, more mobs. This era made the game more deep and gave us more progression options, as well as a clear goal of beating the game. Then, the 1.9 combat update era. It brought us post-game exploration as well as one of the most controversial items throughout Minecraft's history because of how useful but overpowered it was. We also got the color update, which arguably was one of the most impactful updates for builders, and of course the combat update itself, disabling the player's ability to simply spam click their ops. Next, undoubtedly the golden age of Minecraft updates when Mojang and Microsoft actually locked in. In 1.13, we got a full overhaul of water giving us different ocean types, countless water creatures, hostile or not, a swimming overhaul, shipwrecks and buried treasures. Each edition had its own unique function. Turtles can leave their shells to give us a water-breathing helmet. Dolphins act as a temporary companion guiding the player through the sea. The drowned with their tridents being the first weapon that can be used both up close and at long range. And of course, the mini quest on finding a treasure map through the new structures and tracking the treasure, leading to another side quest of building an underwater base. There are countless more features which I didn't mention just because I'd spent the whole video talking about them. You think that's it? They rewrote the game's code, creating non-integer IDs and improving the console readability. As you can imagine, the mod community wasn't too thrilled about this, as they had to rewrite all of their mods from scratch if they wanted to continue supporting them past version 1.12.2. Overall, this was a massive update, especially considering the small and steady updates we've been getting before this. This was a pretty big update, huh? 1.14 will probably just be a small overhaul after that, right? Wrong! Next year we got a full trading overhaul. We got updated villagers and villages, finally giving trading a purpose. We got a whole new faction, pillagers, which technically existed before this update but got a proper name as well as an expansion to the ranks and outposts with a whole raid mechanic, making the player defend their village from them. Furthermore, we got a complete overhaul of all textures in the game. This, as you can imagine, was also highly controversial at the time, but low-key, the old textures were kinda ass, even for 2019 standards. I'm glad they changed them. But they didn't stop that here, closing it off with a small 1.15 update adding bees, which made redstoneers very happy, but mostly focusing on fixing major bugs. Next year we got a full nether dimension overhaul. It gave us 5 unique biomes, each with their newly added flora and fauna, as well as another new faction, piglins, with their unique bastions and treasures, serving as one of the most notable neutral mobs to this day that can act as a friendly trader or as a hostile mob depending on what armor you're wearing. We also finally got a new armor and weapon tier, netherite, which gave us a unique and tedious way to obtain the material for our upgrades. And finally, of course, more micro features that serve to fill the new biomes. As you can imagine, this update changed the speedrunning forever, providing faster but riskier ways of obtaining the resources needed to beat the game. Next year is what most players consider the last update of this golden era, Caves and Cliffs Parts 1 and 2. Part 1 wasn't anything too crazy, adding various mobs and blocks to fill the cave systems, but without any way to naturally obtain them. Part 2 is the one that changed the game once more with its complete world generation overhaul, extending the world by 64 meters down and adding new deep state stone layer along with multiple cave biomes filled with blocks and mobs from the previous update. The last era of updates as of right now is the modern era, or random era. Instead of updating huge chunks of the game that needed some polish, Mojang sort of started updating random shit. In 1.19 we got the Deep Dark Cave biome along with the Warden, mangrove swamps along with frogs, a lace that can bring you items, slightly updated creative menu and boats with chests. Overall, an update that's a little all over the place, which in my opinion is totally valid since the dev team was recovering after the pandemic, hence why the previous update was split in two and the Warden came just now and not a year ago. Not to worry, they're probably just saving up for the next massive update. The next update hits and they added archaeology with underwhelming loot, camels, the sniffer, cherry forest and armor trims. The last two additions are pretty cool, but the other ones are kinda useless. Alright, maybe they're saving up for the next year. Let's see. We got the trial chambers, wind charges, and the maze. Okay, we're starting to cook over here. What else did they add? Pouches and reskinned oak forest. Ooh. They're switching to multiple small updates per year instead of one massive update per year? First quarter of 2025 gets us multiple variations of farm animals, some bushes and leaves, and new textures for spawn eggs. Not bad, the quality of life updates are always welcome. Second quarter gave us locator bar and happy guest. Okay. The third quarter gave us expansions to Copper and the Copper Golem. The final quarter brought us the Spear and the Nautilus. Hold up, am I seeing this shit right? Did we just not get a single structure for the whole year? Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Has the game's direction changed since 1.18? Kinda. It is clear that Mojang now focuses on pushing out more frequent updates, seemingly not connected to each other at all. In the Golden Era, Mojang tried to reimagine existing game mechanics to remove the weakest parts of the game at the time and make the grind less tedious. 1.13 removed long and boring travel between continents and gave the players the reason to approach the sea other than to simply get far away from spawn. 1.14 tried redesigning the trading system to give players the possibility of consistent resource gain at an expense of maintaining the village and its villagers, while making villagers a proper diverse faction as well as redrawing outdated textures. 1.15 is basically 1.14 part 2, but it gets a pass because it came out the same year as 1.14 did. 1.16 redesigned the Nether, which much like the oceans was a more tedious and boring location, which you have to visit to progress the game. 1.17 and 1.18 redesigned deep mining for ores, which again was getting repetitive just because of how simple the cave systems used to be. Mojang practically achieved an effect of another dimension with this update, all while staying in the overworld. In the modern era of Minecraft, Mojang is focusing on polishing the small things while adding completely new content. This seems alright, but the problem is there's so much more important things to update. If you touched this game even for a second, you would know that Mojang has been shaken in fear at the mention of the End update. You know, the thing that has last been updated in 2016, aka the looting dimension? Because there is nothing to do there but kill the dragon, get your elytra and shulkers and never step a foot there again. It's one continuous waste that goes on and on infinitely. And I know how that's gonna sound, but elytra are long overdue for a rework. This item is one most unbalanced piece of gameplay I've ever seen in my entire life. Pre-nerf Brigade doesn't compare to these levels of survivability. It's one of the fastest forms of transportation in the game, so you would expect it to come at some sort of expense. No! You can enchant it with Mending and Unbreaking 3 to fly forever, and all you need is Fireworks, which happen to be crafted from two easiest farmable resources in the game. Wow, Mojang, you added camels? That's so cool! Anyways, let me take off from ground. Problem is, you can't really fix this anymore. In my honest opinion, don't frame me please, fireworks shouldn't work with Elytra, or at least be 5 times less effective than they are. As of right now, there is no transport in the game that is in any way competing with Elytra. So everything else either needs to get buffed, or Elytra needs a severe nerf. On the subject of transport, you know what else is long overdue for a rework? Minecarts. This item has so much potential to be the greatest time investment in the game, as you need to set up the rails first, but it's so damn slow. We're pushing 2 years since the minecart rebalance experiment was released, and there is still no news. You know what else they teased and never released? The goddamn combat update too. We're pushing 7 years since this update announcement, and Mojang has just silently forgotten it. We could have gotten an overhaul of all weapons to balance them out, but they just never talked about it ever again. It gets worse. What happened to the trading rebalance? It got announced a year ago and it went nowhere. The villager trading system has been left unbalanced since 1.14 came out. Worst thing is, the update is right there, ready to use, and it makes trading biome dependent. Instead, it's sitting in the experimental tab untouched. It almost feels like Mojang pushed out these experiments with the promise to finish and polish them later, but forgot to do finishing and polishing, leaving these great updates to rot in the experimental tab with no updates ever since they released. As we see, there are a lot of things to be reworked because of how unbalanced and tedious some gameplay is. But Mojang is seemingly focusing on adding new mobs, and I'm sorry, but they need to get out of the kitchen right now, cause these MFs ain't cooking. I ain't gonna talk about the mob vote mobs, they're mostly great in my opinion, but everything else they be adding is useless. The creaking literally just walks behind you. The camels are just horses but for 2 people. And the sniffer, don't get me started on this useless bum. You have to go out of your way to do archaeology, find his egg, wait for him to hatch, and all that for him to give you flowers? Are we deadass? Happy Ghast and Nautilus are pretty cool, but they serve such a niche purpose that most players ain't ever using them. Like, how many players were, shit, I wanna build a house underwater so badly right now. Also, this mob completely removes the point of a conduit. Why would I ever use it anymore if I can just infinitely breathe underwater? The only cool addition that serves the purpose since 1.19 are the trial chambers, because they serve as a genuine challenge while also giving us unique and useful rewards. But again, it's just one structure with its unique items for the whole update. What happened to the model when we used to get 5 more biomes along with the structure? While Mojang was kinda fumbling with all of these updates, Hytale came out in early access and we finally saw the direction they're going to go. It seems they're moving with the RPG genre, but still an ability to play sandbox. So, not exactly Minecraft's direction, which is focusing on survival and sandbox. I haven't had a chance to play it myself yet, but I still want to talk about its competition with Minecraft and why I have high hopes that Hytale can succeed. Right now, we as Minecraft players have a unique opportunity to do what Gabe Newell does on a daily basis: do nothing and still win. What I mean by this is if Hytale gets a big fan base and even pulls players from Minecraft, this would force Mojang to make a move and log back in. We've actually already seen this happen to other 2 games in the last year when Marvel Rivals came out. Now, admittedly, Overwatch wasn't doing too good even then, but let's be so for real, not like they were even trying to do good. Marvel Rivals coming out was kind of the last straw to start burying Overwatch, stealing its players. More than a year later, Marvel Rivals still has a massive player base and the consistent updates every few months constantly keeping the game fresh. For Overwatch to ignore this means to be forgotten as another titan of the past that couldn't adapt to the present. That's why right now we're seeing them lock in and drop a massive update with 5 characters at the same time to try and get the players' attention back. Overwatch players that stayed loyal to the product are the ones benefiting the most here, as they're suddenly getting a massive increase in content just because a more popular game exists. This is why I have sincere hope that Hytale pulls it off on its full release and takes a big chunk of online from Minecraft, because that would just mean that Mojang has to adapt and start pushing big updates again, or die with its lack of content. So has Minecraft stopped trying? Yes and no. Technically they're pushing out updates at a decent rate, although with less combined content than in the golden era. They just changed the direction and the target audience. Instead of updating already existing major things that make the gameplay for experienced players boring, they started focusing on aesthetics. They're doing more visual redesigns and adding cute animals from real life. My guess is they're trying to pursue a broader audience that hasn't touched Minecraft and get them hooked using things they already know about outside the game. Instead of making rare but global updates, they're pushing out more frequent and minor updates. This works fine to keep the most active part of the community alive, but fails to get the two weak phasers back into the game. The beauty of the older era was logging in after a year of not playing and having a huge amount of content to explore. Right now, there is no reason for me to go back into Minecraft after a year of not playing, because the changes are so niche that I likely won't even notice them without reading the patch notes. This is kinda sad, because with the new model, the end update might never happen, just because so much needs to be changed and added at the same time, obviously not fitting into a singular quarter update. In conclusion, I hope that Hytale can succeed and force Minecraft back into their old update model, but all we can do right now is wait until its full release and pray for Mojang to log back in.